You got a raise. Nice. A few months later, your bank account looks exactly the same. Not close. Exactly the same. You sat through the review, smiled at the praise, and heard the number go up. So where did the money go? Well, I am going to explain 3 important things and why that happens. Because once you understand that, you can actually do something about it. Let's get started. First thing starts with a question psychologists have been studying for decades. Why don't good things make us lastingly happier? Back in 1978, researchers Philip Brickman and Dan Coates ran a study that became one of the most cited in happiness research. They looked at lottery winners, and what they found was surprising. Within a relatively short period, those lottery winners reported happiness levels that had basically returned to where they were before winning. This is called Hedonic Adaptation, and it applies to your salary too. Here's how it plays out. You earn $50,000. You build a life around that number. Your apartment, your car, your habits, it all calibrates to $50,000. That's your normal. Then you get a raise to $60,000. And without sitting down and planning it, without any big decision, your life quietly expands. A slightly better apartment, eating out a little more, upgrading a subscription. None of it feels extravagant. Each thing feels reasonable. You earned it. You deserve it. But here's the thing. The extra $10,000, mostly gone. And within a few months, the raise just feels like your normal salary. The excitement fades. You've adapted. And this matters because of what happens to your savings. According to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, the American personal saving rate was around 3.8% at the end of 2024. That means the average household is spending about 96 cents of every dollar that comes in. So when a raise arrives, it gets absorbed by the same machine. Spending expands to meet it. Warren Buffett is worth well over $100 billion. He still lives in the same 5-bedroom house in Omaha, Nebraska he bought in 1958 for $31,500. When asked about it, he said, "I couldn't imagine having a better house." He's also said, directly, "Possessions possess you at a point." That's not eccentricity. That's someone who decided, early, that his lifestyle would not automatically expand every time his income did. And that decision compounded, just like his investments. Here's the second thing, and I think this one gets underestimated. Ask yourself, did that raise actually make you become more free, or did you just become more expensive to maintain? Because those are genuinely different things. Think about what typically follows a salary increase. You move somewhere nicer, higher rent. You get a better car, monthly payment. And individually, each of those feels fine. But here's what nobody points out at that moment. Every single one of those upgrades is now a fixed monthly obligation. It's locked in. And locked-in obligations reduce your options. Here's a simple comparison. Person A earns $40,000 a year and spends $30,000. They have $10,000 of breathing room. Person B earns $120,000 a year and spends $118,000. They have $2,000 of breathing room. Who actually has more freedom? Person A can walk away from a bad job. They can take a risk. They can say no. Person B looks successful. Nice apartment, nice car, but they cannot do any of those things. They need every dollar of that income just to stay at the level they've built. Recent research from the Bank of America Institute and a study by PIMTS show many high earners still spend almost everything they make. And overall, Americans save almost nothing of their take-home, under about 4% on average, according to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. That means most raises get swallowed, not stacked. The salary went up, the freedom didn't. This is what some people call the Golden Handcuff. And the cuffs aren't made of poverty, they're made of comfort. Comfort that quietly raises your floor month by month until you need a really high income just to maintain who you've become. The actual measure of financial freedom isn't what you earn. It's the gap between what you earn and what you genuinely need. That gap is what lets you take a risk, change direction, or say no to something that doesn't serve you. Here's a practical framework I call the 48-hour rule. The moment you find out you're getting a raise, that day or the next, you sit down and you decide where that extra money is going. Deliberately, before your life decides for you. Because here's what happens if you don't. The raise lands in your account. It blends in, and slowly, over the following weeks, you start making slightly more expensive choices. Nothing dramatic, just a bit more here, a bit more there. Months later, you're fully living at the new income level with nothing changed. The 48-hour window is when the money still feels abstract. Before the new rent, the new payment, the new routine locks in. That's the moment to act. When you sit down, here's a simple split to consider. It's sometimes called the 70-20-10 approach, and the idea behind it is straightforward. 70% of your raise goes to building wealth into an index fund, a retirement account, or savings that move automatically before you see them. This sounds like a lot, but you are surviving on your old income. Nothing about your daily life actually has to change. 20%. Invest in yourself. Anything that upgrades your skill set, that takes this raise and turns it into leverage for the next one. 10%. You actually enjoy. One deliberate upgrade, something you consciously choose. Do it. Enjoy it properly, and then hold the line on everything else. That 10% is important. Not as a reward, as a safety valve. If every single raise just disappears into accounts you never touch, you'll eventually rebel. The small, deliberate upgrade is what makes the rest of the disciplines sustainable over time. The behavioral economics principle underpinning all of this is what's often called pay yourself first. The idea that money saved automatically before it enters your spending account actually gets saved. Money that arrives and blends in with everything else almost never does. The 48-hour rule just formalizes that decision before inertia takes over. Imagine you're used to living on $3,000 a month. You get a $300 raise. If you let it float, you'll slowly spend it. If you direct 70% away instantly, you've essentially made your raise permanent wealth building instead of permanent rent creep. Let's bring it back. First, hedonic adaptation is real and well documented. Your brain adapts to a higher salary within months and treats it as your new normal. That's not a character flaw, it's psychology. Lifestyle inflation is what happens when you let that adaptation determine your spending automatically. Second, financial freedom isn't measured by what you earn. It's measured by the gap between what you earn and what you need. Research shows that even high earners regularly find themselves with almost no breathing room because lifestyle expanded to fill income. Every automatic upgrade closes that gap. Third, the 48-hour rule. When a raise arrives, allocate it before your lifestyle does. 70% into building wealth, 20% into building your skills, 10% to genuinely enjoy. Decision made in 48 hours before inertia kicks in. That's it. If you have ever gotten a raise and found yourself wondering where it went a few months later, drop it below. I'd genuinely like to know what got it. And if this was useful, subscribe. See you in the next one.